had long ago bought these things. I mean, it's only been like, I don't know, 7 years ago since I got. And I'm like, my head's exploding. You should have replaced it twice since then.
We just need to teach people that computer years are like dog years.
You're listening to the Help Me with HIPAA podcast, where HIPAA and humor collide to make learning fun. Your delightful hosts are Donna Grindle and David Sims. Relax, HIPAA help is on the way.
Welcome to episode 358 of the Help Me with HIPAA podcast. My name is David Sims of HIPAA for MSPs, and joining us is Donna Grindle of Carden. Good evening, Donna.
I know it is weird doing this at the end of the day after all those years of doing it on a Friday morning.
Yep, I know.
We still haven't adjusted, but it is making a few things easier.
Yeah, yes it is.
So, welcome to your new week, David.
I know.
And your hair did not burn off the top of your head, although we both said hair on fire Monday.
Yeah, it's pretty much every Monday. I've gotten used to it. I need to start earlier. You know, I used to do that. Like I get up at 5 o'clock in the morning and, you know, start working around 6-ish. Give me 2 hours before the phone would start ringing. It's like you get so much done in that 2 hours. Mm-hmm. But somewhere along the way, it had to do with the pandemic because, you know, you start working from home all the time. And of course, you know, you've always worked from home, so it's a little different. But for me, I'd have to get up and travel to the office. But I don't have to do that anymore. So I have to be at work at 8 o'clock. And so I usually get up at 7:59. And so there's no time to get anything done before everything starts blowing up.
Yeah, and then you need to go somewhere and you can't go in your pajamas. And I've learned better habits over the years, but I have never been that get up early, do stuff person. I get my stuff done like at 7 o'clock at night.
Oh, I was going to say, I know you ain't saying in the morning.
Nah.
I know you better than that.
Never been that. Hey. So, but I will be getting up early. Perfect segue. I do have to get up early when we do our boot camps because we have to cram as much as we possibly can into the day. And there's always a debate about how early they're going to make me get up.
Yeah. Well, you know, anytime you go to things like this, your first thing is, all right, what time does the session start?
Yeah.
So I don't know who decided to make them this early. I voted for 10, but I got shot down.
I know. I couldn't figure out how to cram everything in between 10 and 3 as much as I wanted to. That's why we're making it clear this is not a conference.
Nope, it is not.
It is not a conference. It is hardcore boot camp training, people.
That's right. That's why we're starting at 4 a.m.
No. I can't negotiate that far and be a leader. No.
Okay, so that's not true. But what is true is it's going to be September 12, 13, 14, and 15 in Louisville, Kentucky.
Louisville.
And you can find out more at PriSecBootCamp.com. We have lots of people very interested in joining us there.
Yeah, we just came back from conferences and picked up, I think, 4 or 5 new people that they came and discussed it with us and will be signing up kind of deal this week. So it's really picking up steam, and it's good to see that because we kind of have a lot going on. So we might as well get this done other than, you know, don't want to disappoint. So anyway.
Yeah, we had a meeting about this last week with, you know, the team. And somebody brought up, when are we going to do the next one after this? And I'm like, are you kidding me? Let's get through this one first. I mean,
yeah,
you're talking about like
that look.
It's like an immediate feeling of overwhelm. It's like, what? It's like somebody asking you when you're going to have another kid when you're still in the hospital with the first one.
Yeah. And you don't even know what you're doing with that one.
I'm like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, they did bring that up. And I tried to be a good leader and have a plan, but at the same time, I was like, it's going to be too painful to talk about that right now.
I was driving down the road on the Zoom call and about rear-ended a car in front of me. Crazy.
All right, so we don't know the next date, so you might want to be worried about September. Join us in Louisville for the 3.5-day boot camp. More information at PriceSecBootCamp.com. There we go. All right, share us out, people.
Yep, share us out. Send us to somebody you love and a few people you hate. If you hate more people than you love, we appreciate it. Thanks to our donors. We thank you very much. Love you guys. I mean it. Mm-hmm. All right, so our HIPAA Say What segment. I wasn't ready with the button, but here we go. HIPAA Say What?
The what is kind of fading out on you there, David. You and your button have got to work on some stuff.
Say what?
That's better. We apologize for David's button problems. Anyway, so the HIPAA Say What, it was a very interesting question, and we get a ton of folks checking, what does this mean, and can we do this, and how we do that, and I would love for them to do that all day long rather than assume, that you could do things. So these folks came to us this week, and it was, being extra careful because they had 2 members of the organization they lost to COVID, and they were wanting to recognize them in a certain way. And in healthcare, that's a big deal because there were plenty of folks that we lost to that. Carla's cousin was a nurse that passed from COVID in Alabama. So I know that there's a lot of that going on. And there was a question of, we want to do this to acknowledge them. And is there any HIPAA privacy problems with us doing that was the question. Mm-hmm. So I really, really appreciate that they're taking the time and trying to decide and confirm. Good news here is if you're not treating the employee, now if the employee's a patient, then HIPAA does apply. And you need to get proper authorization, so on and so forth. The family can authorize you to do that. Whatever you need to do there would only apply if the employee was a patient or if you are self-insured and you are running the insurance plan yourself. So now the employee is under your insurance plan, and that's a really squirrely one, but it's usually big enterprises where that happens, but you definitely want to make sure there. But in this case, neither applied, and nothing would trigger HIPAA to apply at that moment. We always recommend that you talk to the families or the estate people, whoever you need to talk to let them know you're doing it. But HIPAA's not the thing if they're not a patient or an insured under a plan that you are managing yourself. So there you go. That's the news on that.
All right.
Then we had a couple of other interesting ones. Clearly, they do not listen to the podcast. They just found our website searching for HIPAA information.
Yeah, they did.
And so it was really thoughtful that somebody who was starting a smoothie shop was worried if they needed to document their regular customers' choices for the health food stuff. And good for you. The other one is somebody upset about not being able to get their records. Can't help you there, but we're trying to be helpful as we can with what we got to work with. So we get interesting stuff, folks. We get a lot of other interesting stuff that we don't even bring up. We just go, did you see that? Delete.
Yeah, there was one that, I don't know, talking about their accounts being hacked or something like that. I don't remember. It was It was hard to follow, which it ended in, I need your help. I don't think so.
I can't help you.
Yeah, I don't.
You're not really reading the website at all.
Yeah.
You're just finding a place to ask for something. So we're trying to deal with it.
Yeah.
Anyhow, moving on.
Moving on to 405D tip of the week. Yeah, so we've been going through some of these practices, and today we're going to talk about practice number 5. Mambo number 5. Asset management.
That's right. It is number 5. The good news here, as we have been doing with these tips, we give you the link to the little poster for the prescription and all of this stuff, where they point out asset management is critical to ensuring that the appropriate cyber hygiene controls are maintained across all assets in your organization. As I always tell people, if you don't know you have them and where to find them, then you cannot properly protect your assets, can you?
No, you absolutely cannot protect your assets unless you know where it's at.
And we actually did way back, in BC, in January this year, we did a whole episode on why you need asset inventories. That episode was prompted by the Log4j thing, but this also applies. And the small and large organization info is here. Those are your gigs. You want to hit those real quick because you got the details you can go pick up in the full episode number 337.
Yep. So for small organizations, having an accurate inventory, so complete and accurate inventory of your IT assets in your organization, those things will help you look at the implementation of your security controls. So it can be something that can be conducted and maintained using a well-designed spreadsheet even. So, it doesn't have to be some piece of software that you buy or whatever, but just know what you have and where it's at. The other thing is the procurement processes should be implemented and followed at all levels of the organization. Think about things that you're buying, things that you are decommissioning. What is the life cycle of each IT asset? And particularly, what are you going to do with it after you decommissioned it?
Yes, please. Please make sure you decommission and remove them properly.
Yep. So also have policies, procedures around all that. Make sure it's done. So it's going to happen. What are you going to do when you retire those assets?
And they will not last forever, people. They will not.
No. We had somebody we met with a couple of weeks ago, and they're like, I hadn't long ago bought these things. I mean, it's only been 7 years ago since I got. And I'm like, my head's exploding. You should have replaced it twice since then.
We just need to teach people that computer years are like dog years. Right? So 1 year equals 7.
Mm-hmm.
All right, 5. Go with 5. It's still like dog years.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. So, anyway, we'll talk more about some of this stuff in a little bit. I've had some interesting ones in the past couple of weeks. All right. So for medium and large organizations, not only should you do the previous things, but also make sure you provide secure storage for your inactive devices. Where are you going to put them? Where are you going to stick them when they're not active? Because sometimes it's not that you're decommissioning them and getting rid of them. It's that, you've got people that they moved on to another job and you've got their IT assets sitting there. And okay, when we rehire somebody else, and we pull them out of the closet and give them to somebody else. It could be that. Also, you have the integration with network access control procedures. So, consider that. And automated discovery and maintenance systems. So implement those types of things so that you've got something that's out there looking at what type of assets that you are putting on your network. And I can guarantee you there's always something you didn't know was there.
I know, right? There are times even when I'm doing my regular scans on mine, I'm like, what is that?
I was doing that over the weekend. I pull mine up and okay, it's time for me to look at my stuff again. And I'm like, okay, I don't know what this is.
And then it's torture.
Yeah,
it's
torture
can be.
Sometimes. It can be. Sometimes you can kind of figure out what it is. These tools, they do a pretty good job. But every so often there's one that's like, okay, all I see is a brand and an IP address and a MAC address, but I don't know what it is.
Yeah, then you hit the search engines.
Yeah. For me, I have to go look at like, when was it last seen? Because it was probably some neighborhood kid that came in the house, connected to the open Wi-Fi or something. And then the tool grabs that information and holds on to it to say, hey, here was an asset that was here.
Yes. But if it's on a different network, all bets are off.
Yep.
Alrighty then. You ready to get into the meat of the day?
Yeah. So here's a good question you and I get fairly frequently. As a matter of fact, just got it today.
And I got it at the conference. Same thing.
So the question is, how do they get in? Oh my gosh, man. And we're always talking about preventing the bad guys from getting in and what to do about it when they actually get in and when the attack occurs. But we do get asked this question all the time, which is, but how do they get in?
Mm-hmm.
And there's not a clear-cut answer all the time.
No, there's sometimes, I recently had a case where the insurance company had people and they're like, well, we don't normally work with this kind of stuff. We work with like ransomware, business email compromise. That's their gig. I was like, my people don't have those boring things.
That's true.
They're going to have something weird and interesting. So anyway, yes, there's not always the same, but we will get to the last one is the one I always answer. I'm pretty sure it's the same to you, but
yeah,
it was funny that I was getting these questions and having these conversations, over dinner and lunch, and they come up and it's always, well, how did they get in? Or why don't they have a job? I was like, it is their job. You don't understand. People hire them to do this.
Yeah, that's always a funny one.
I know. I was like, it's like their full-time job.
Yeah, and they're making more money than you are.
Yeah, it's that still has that perception that it's just some random person running around randomly stealing things. No, it's organized crime, people. Mm-hmm. It's organized crime. Very organized. So what was interesting, we just covered the joint advisory from all the different countries and everything about the MSPs and their customers. And then on the just like in between that one and now, we had another one come out as a joint advisory between the U.S., which is the CISA, FBI, NSA group, plus their counterparts from Canada, New Zealand, the Netherlands, and the UK, who have published an advisory, the Joint Cybersecurity Advisory, always seems very important, co-authored by all of those groups with all of those logos that look a little official. This one is weak security controls and practices routinely exploited for initial access. So we translated to that to how did they get in? And I tell you, it's the one thing that's always in the mix is a human doing something. Yeah. Always. Either deciding not to do something, deciding they don't care about something. Somewhere there's a human that made a decision and took an action, or did not take an action.
Yeah, which is still a decision.
So the opening of the advisory, their summary was, cyber actors routinely exploit poor security configurations, either misconfigured, i.e. someone made a mistake, or left unsecured, i.e. I just didn't even bother with it. Mm-hmm. Weak controls and other poor cyber hygiene practices to gain initial access, or as part of other tactics to compromise a victim's system. This joint cybersecurity advisory identifies commonly exploited controls and practices and includes best practices to mitigate the issues. So it had a lot of that formal language that they use. Employee detection tools. that kind of stuff. So I tried to group several of them together, and say, here's a way in. Here's some of the stuff we do to fix it.
Alrighty, let's start.
So let's get it done.
Way in number 1. Remote desktop.
I can't. We should go back and find the first time we said, if you have remote desktop installed, and if you're using it and it's exposed to the internet, stop.
Yeah.
We should go back and find that. Because it's way long time ago. I'm sure of it.
Yeah. So, I mean, any type of remote access tool, you need to be seriously looking at. I have found, even recently, people are like, oh, I don't use remote desktop. No, not at all. I'll use VNC. And I'm like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's painful. It's painful, I tell you.
Or I had not too long ago, somebody was like, we all use the same account and we go through the Google remote desktop. And I'm like, what?
What? Slow down.
Yeah, so there's tons of ways to do this. It doesn't have to be the remote desktop protocol, but this is the most common one. So definitely want to look at that.
And when we started saying that long ago, so I just had to go search the website just real quick. So I'm sure it's not the first one, but the first time that RDP appears to be in a title is February 2017. RDP is in the title, episode 92, people. We've been talking about this a long time.
Yeah.
But the answer that most people did was either, well, a lot of people just said, let's put it behind the wall and we'll put a VPN connection.
Mm-hmm.
But then they didn't secure the VPN connection and it's loaded with vulnerabilities. So they're getting in via the VPN and then immediately getting routed to the remote desktop connection.
Yeah. Or they don't understand the two, because you say, oh, only do RDP over VPN. And then what they do is they'll go get a VPN client and then connect to their open to the public RDP.
Exactly. And that doesn't fix it either. So the easiest thing you can do,
don't use it.
Is make sure that anything that you are connecting to remotely, you use multi-factor authentication, MFA, which is, no, it's not convenient. But if you're outside your business network and you're connecting to anything, you should do it with multi-factor authentication.
Mm-hmm.
Every single account. Mm-hmm. As we say, security's not convenient, but you're just, cruising for a bruising, as they say. And by putting it out there, oh, we've got RDP, we've got VPN, and blah, blah, blah. And I hear them, and I'm like, is there MFA? No. And then I hear them where they've told me they're not going to do MFA, and something's happened, and haven't answered that question to their insurance company and their lawyers, where I'm like, it's painful to hear you say that because I told you not to.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still even afraid of MFA on it, because I'll tell you why. Because it's a public-facing IP, that means I have the opportunity to hammer away at the login. And all it takes is for me to convince somebody who has the MFA app or accessibility to give me that code, and I'm in. So,
well, I mean, that's not to say this again is running faster than the other guy running from the bear. Is it perfect? No. But it's way better. That's what I made note. It's, if you have it out there without MFA, it's kind of like putting encryption on your laptop with the encryption key, stuck to the bottom of the laptop without MFA. At least with MFA, the encryption key is on a piece of paper in the bag with the laptop and doesn't say, hey, encryption key is me, or, it's harder than nothing.
I had somebody call me a few weeks ago. They said, remember that laptop you set up for us? I'm like, what, 6 months ago? Yeah, I remember. Do you remember what the password was?
Okay.
And I'm like, somehow I actually did remember it. And then the lady replied, okay, great. I'll make sure to put a sticker on the laptop so we don't have to ask you again.
What'd you say? Please tell me you said, whoa, 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 whoa.
I said, well, then why do we have a password? And she said, that's a great point. Can we remove it? It's not exactly what I was trying to get to.
Oh, please. But please, if you have it exposed, no matter if you are accessing something outside of a secured network, either going back into the network or to cloud applications, we'll get to those in a minute, multi-factor authentication. Please, multi-factor authentication.
Yep.
All right.
Next one. Unpatched software with known, I know you like this word, vulns. Vulnerabilities and fixes. So, yeah, this is one of those ones it's kind of easy, right? Just patch everything. But then again, it's not easy.
No, it's not. No, it's not. It is, but it isn't. But if it's especially things that are, exposed, they need to be constantly patched.
Mm-hmm.
Please keep your firewalls. First of all, have a business class firewall, and second, keep it on support and patched.
Yep.
I just got a call from somebody. They just figured out that their IT provider said, "Oh, we don't know what's going on with that one at that location, and we haven't had time to get to it." Well, you know what? It turns out that particular device went off of support in October. Log4j was after that. And I found like 4 critical updates for that device and all these others. And the IT guy is kind of like, I got a guy, and was like, well, I'll get to it when I get to it. So they're getting a new IT person. But if you don't have these things patched, that's how they're getting in. That's how they're getting in. Because it's published. Yeah. Everybody knows this is a way for me to get around security.
Yeah. And if you don't know, there are tools out there that will scan the internet looking for devices with these vulnerabilities that are connected.
Mm-hmm. Or what happens is they use one of these other ways and they get in, and then the first thing they do is scan for vulnerabilities so they can get deeper inside and take over things. So that's a no-brainer.
And this is why, not that I want people to be paranoid, but I want you to be paranoid. This is why you have to be very careful about what you tell people about your environment. If you're telling me hardware you're using, software you're using, then you're telling me everything I can go and look to see whether or not you have unpatched vulnerabilities on those things.
Yes.
So be very careful when people are going, so what kind of software do you use? What type of hardware do you use? Just
don't answer a random survey on the internet asking you these things.
Yeah.
Don't do that.
Because especially if they're asking you what email client do you use? Shout out to William.
Yeah. What kind of shop are you? Hey, I'm on to you.
Yeah. Are you a Google shop?
But patching. And guess what? We did a whole episode on why patching matters.
Mm-hmm.
That one was not long ago. It'll still BC though. But it still applies. It was
and we always
early January 2020, I think.
And we always talk about patching, and we say this, and we'll never probably stop saying this, but your IT company is likely not patching everything.
Yeah.
So you need to figure out what they are patching, what they're not patching. Whose responsibility is it to patch?
Everything. And you know how you know what to ask? Because you have asset inventories to go through to see who's patching what.
Yeah.
So here's the next way in. This one I had to merge several things, but improper use of password controls like 6-character passwords permissions, privileges, and or use of default login information for devices and software.
See this
printers,
all the time.
Please, printers. When we ask people, has anybody checked the username and password of your printers? And they're like,
what?
There is one?
I was on vacation a few months ago and staying in this resort, connected to their public Wi-Fi, did a scan. I found 12 printers. Every single one of them had default username and passwords on.
Say no more. That's it. That should be the example you need. And then these things get exposed to open internet, and they never get patched. And if you do have a username and password, it's either got a weak password control or they have authority to everything.
Yep.
So then if you log in, you're able to, if they get you to give up your credentials or they steal them in another way, and there are plenty of ways, then immediately off they go with plenty of activity they can do on your network.
Or there could just be random test print pages sitting there in the morning.
Oh, yeah. When people are like, does this mean anything? Yes, it does. This means you got the problem. No problem. No problem. But doing regular scans to see, that's that discovery thing about your assets, to know what's out there, and real access control that address the Donna's 3 security rules. I should make a page that's just Donna's 3 security rules, shouldn't I?
I think you should do a t-shirt.
Oh, I was working on t-shirts at the conference. I got to tell you about that. So, rule number 1, security is not convenient. Rule number 2, security is not optional. Rule number 3, security shouldn't prevent you from effectively and efficiently doing your job. You have to balance all 3.
Yep.
But that being said, guess what? When it comes to passwords and stuff, we've done an episode on that. Who would have thought? Right?
Yep.
We did an episode on episode 187. Passwords are a necessary evil, because we had tried to give them up. We tried to get rid of them, and we said, hey, ain't nothing else you can do.
No, I mean, there keeps coming up every so often this thing that's going to, take over passwords and make it passwordless. But so far, I've not yet seen anything that really makes them go away. They put them in different, kind of a different form factor, but they're not going to go away.
Right. They bring them in. So we generally, you see those two things. The password killer. We're never going to deal with passwords again because blah, 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 blah. Biometrics, great. How can we deploy them effectively everywhere? And make them, fingerprints were the big thing. Do you know how many people it will not read? Because their fingertips or something's wrong with them. And I've met several that they can't, it will not read them. Just that. And then we're also going to have the thing that'll kill email.
No, it's not going to happen either.
Yeah. I mean, I hope so someday, but it is not for right now. And guess what? That'll just bring out new problems.
Yep. You have to wait until the neural transmitter comes out.
Oh, no. I tell you, people were talking like this was some sort of super future thing that when you saw somebody, it would tell you their name. Because, people always talk about you can't remember somebody's name, but you know their name, but don't know their name.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, come on. They're already talking about apps where you wear the glasses and somebody walks up and it shows you all their social media, their name, when you last talked to them, all the details about them surrounding their face. And they're like, what?
Then you'll never look at them. You're too busy reading everything.
I know. You just walk up and it's going to tell you everything.
Yeah.
That's when you just stand there for a minute. There's your neural transmitter.
Yeah.
I'll just stand here for
Look, you remember me, right?
Look to the top right of the circle. Okay, next way in. Cloud services that the attackers are able to get in, and they're able to use it either to drop things off that people then access from, a cloud server.
Mm-hmm.
Or my special favorite is they get in and they find a spreadsheet with everybody's username and password on it.
Yeah. Yeah. Unfortunately, this cloud services are fantastic. I think the debate of cloud or not to cloud is kind of going away. And it's gotten to the point now where people trust it and they embrace it and all that. But the problem still stands that most people don't understand it well enough to use it properly. And so they do things like never log out of it. They don't realize that because they're connected to it from a computer, they can't just say, oh, all my data is in the cloud and I don't have to protect my computers anymore. Mm-hmm. Just had this discussion last week with a healthcare provider who said, we use fill in the blank EHR platform that's cloud-based and we don't have to worry about our data. And I'm like, well, how do you get to your data? And they look at me kind of strange. I said, do you get to it through your computers? Yeah. Are you protecting those computers? No. I said, so if I'm able to remotely get into your computer some way, then I can get to that data that you're connected to all the time, right? Yeah. But that's just, that proves my point is that people put things in the cloud, but then they think, okay, it's in the cloud, it's secure. There's nothing I need to do on my end to do my part. And that's where they're wrong.
I just recently had that same discussion about, well, is the cloud secure? It can be. And for many small businesses, it is likely to be more secure than having a server at your office. Mm-hmm. Because you're going to have the built-in business continuity, disaster recovery, all of those things that you won't have, that you have to worry about at a whole different level if it's physically in your office. So put your server in a data center in the cloud. Mm-hmm. Don't go all in cloud apps if you're worried about it. There is a middle, but the thing is, it just has a different security list to worry about.
Right.
So you just say it can be more secure, but it just has a different list of things. I don't just get to walk away.
Yep.
It's like the people that said, well, I thought if we hired a IT provider, we didn't have to worry about this anymore. Like, what?
Yeah. I mean, if you don't understand anything else about cybersecurity, understand this. The problems in cybersecurity do not get solved. They only get managed.
Exactly. Yeah. All the way around. It's just like anything else. You manage, and I use this with a group of providers, and I told them, you need to understand that cybersecurity isn't a problem you solve. It's a chronic condition that you manage and medicate. Mm-hmm. And they're like, oh.
Yeah, I get that.
That makes a little bit more sense. So it's a chronic condition that you manage in healthcare.
Yep.
Anyway, the big important thing that you do to fix that is do a risk analysis and build a security plan. Mm-hmm. Preferably before you start using them. Yeah. But if they're already in place, please go do that now. And audit your plans and monitor your stuff, monitor for failures and intrusions, all the same things that you would do if it was on a local network. You just do it a different way.
Yeah. And also realize, just like your devices in your network, cloud services can change. Your settings that you had in there can just mysteriously change sometimes. There's new terms and services that come out all the time. You got to accept the new privacy information and the new security information. So it's not static. It's not static. What you do today may be not good 6 months or a year from now. So you can't just throw stuff in the cloud and go, I'm good. I don't have to do another risk analysis for a long period of time.
Yeah. And I actually had somebody say, so if we just do our paperwork once a year, we're good, right?
No.
First of all, if you're worried about doing paperwork, you're not good at all.
Yeah.
If that's what you're thinking about, you're not good at all. So keep that in mind, that you do different security and you have help.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of the way to look at it. Now, the next way in is one that you and I have talked about a lot of different ways. I should have gone and found, I know the episode now to connect to this. Configurations that allow devices and software to be exposed to the internet without any or very little protections in place, because there's an assumption that they're not connecting to the internet, even though you gave it Wi-Fi information. I'm not saying, I'm just saying. But, we're talking about, I just wanted to check in because the doctor told me they were going to put in Alexa devices in all of our surgery bay rooms, all of our surgery rooms in the ASC. Wait, what? Yeah. No, you don't just go put them in. Because guess what? They're connected to the internet.
Oh, yeah. Well, I told you over the weekend I was looking at my vulnerability management system in my home/home office. Mm-hmm. I noticed that the HEPA filter system thing that my wife just recently purchased from Amazon connects via Wi-Fi.
Did she have you set?
I'm like, why does this thing need to be connected? And so I asked her that. What is this? Why is it? Well, I have to be able to control it from the app. I'm like, why? You can't just push the button on it. So no, it tells me when I need to change the filter out. Okay. Mm-hmm. Can't you just look at it? It's dirty.
Yeah. I'm looking right at it and I'm seeing this.
My response to her was great. Yet another thing that's on my network. Now it's segmented because she doesn't have access to the secure side of my network. It's segmented, but still, it's just like, ugh.
I know. Somebody wants to hook something to our network here. Carla goes, you've got to ask her where you're allowed to do that. Mm-hmm. And people be like, what are you talking about? Well, it just depends on what it is. What is this thing doing? Why does it need to be connected? Why do we want it connected? Can we connect it only when we want it connected? Can we make it, I have a lot of variables.
Yep.
So again, it's all about do not assume anything when it comes to security. Because if you assume that I'm sure that it's secured, my robot vacuum is secured, and I do love it when Robbie the Roomba, the vacuum cleaner, notified me when I was out of town that it was stuck on something. I'm like, you're going to have to wait till I get home. And that's all great, but I do have it on a segmented network where it can't see everything and everybody else. So, needless to say, everything today, everybody thinks it needs to connect. Mm-hmm. So I can control it with the app, or it'll tell me when to change the filter.
Yeah, so I can turn my lights on and off. Mm-hmm. All this other stuff.
So if you think that those things are secure, again, you're cruising for a bruising. Mm-hmm. That's how they get in. Security cameras. Let's don't go down that rabbit hole.
Yeah,
there are so many.
If you want to know how secure they are, it takes me all of maybe 5 minutes to find one online somewhere that I can connect to, and you might be in somebody's bedroom looking at them sleeping.
Mm-hmm. Yep, we've done that. It's out there. It is so easy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had a guy it was a really interesting conversation. He's bringing us in to do some stuff, and so he was telling me about the security they're doing. They're doing some great security. And so then he's telling me something. And so we checked the security camera, and I was like, how are your cameras secure? And he goes, the more I talk to you, the more queasy I feel. I get more and more uncomfortable the more I talk to you. Anyway, do not assume, because the minute you do, you're going to get a series of unfortunate events that will be tied together.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost certain. So that's how they get in. So far, this is my number one way. That we're at the last one. My number one way they get in. Is this your number one way?
Yeah, definitely the number one way by far.
Email.
Yep.
Email. Some way. Email. Mm-hmm. Generally, phishing is involved. There's other ways, but email.
Mm-hmm. Somebody today said, "What security can I put in place to stop, the threats coming through email?" And I'm like, there is nothing that's going to protect you 100% from everything that comes through email, because the bad guys know what they can put in and what they can leave out so that it makes it into your inbox. And oftentimes the payload is not in the email. It's in,
not anymore.
Yeah. It's in the link, or maybe it's not even the link. It's the phone number that you decide to pick up the phone and call.
Mm-hmm. Well, and sometimes the email just tells you, I've left you a voicemail asking you to do something, and use the code that's in that voicemail to go do such and such at such and such site. Yeah. I mean, they're very tricky.
Yep.
So I can tell you for certain, if you're not doing ongoing phishing tests and training every single person with an email account, everyone, and all those, back to what you just said about, what about those computers that you're using to access the email? Protections on those need to be more than a basic antivirus. You need to have real security layers. We talk about that often. But the number one way in has something to do with email almost always.
Yep.
That is my opinion anyway. It is my experience.
You can't throw enough technology at the problem to solve it. It takes also addressing people and processes. Technology in itself is not going to do it. The question I was asked was, what kind of technology can I put in place to make this go away? There's not anything. It's not going to happen.
Because it's the same way as we just started. People are involved.
Yep.
And the hardest thing to secure is the human.
Yep. That's true.
We get distracted or curious or not paying attention at all. Just clicking.
Yeah. The difference between the human vulnerability and the human firewall is training.
Mm-hmm.
So you can have either one. You just have to invest in training.
So train.
Yep.
Look at us. And can't tell you how many different episodes we've done on training.
Yep. And matter of fact, there's an event coming up, PriSec boot camp. Just saying. I mean, if you really
way
care,
to bring it all back around there, brother.
You might want to look into it. That's all I'm saying.
There you go. That's a perfect way to bring it back around.
All right. So now you know how to get in. All right. Thanks for listening, folks. That is our show for today. And remember, for Donna and myself, HIPAA's not about compliance. It's about patient care.
You've been listening to the Help Me with HIPAA podcast, hosted by Donna Grindle and David Sims. The show created to help you with HIPAA. For more information or to ask us a question, visit our website at helpmewithhipaa.com. Neither Donna Grindle or David Sims are attorneys, and they do not offer binding legal advice concerning regulatory compliance. The information in this podcast should not be relied upon or construed as legal advice in any way. Consult your attorney for legal advice concerning compliance with HIPAA regulations.